on this computer. Okay, welcome to a special forthright interview with MJ Bolt, who is currently serving as chair of the Spokane County Republican Party. But we just had a really nice visit over coffee last month. I guess it was December, right? And discovered we had a lot of things in common. And so we wanted to have this conversation as a way to explain how two people got into politics and why people might want to be interested in the caucus that's coming up on January 13th on this next Saturday. So welcome, MJ. I'm happy to hear your story of how did you get hooked into politics?
Well, thanks for having me, Sulani. Yeah, we had a great conversation last month. Well, I got involved, I first got involved just being involved in my schools and stuff with my son. I have a special needs son, and that got me involved in the PTA. And then eventually I ended up on the school board. So I kind of got my entrance through that, really. And I was served on the school board, our local school board, for about 4 years. And then I served on the State Board of Education for the last 8 years. So I've served in education policy for about 12 years. And then what kind of caused me to take that next leap into more politics was everything that happened during COVID and all of these mandates and the shutdowns. I just felt like I was watching our constitutional freedoms just absolutely slip away from our hands. And I asked a lot of questions. I talked to our legislators a lot, going, how can this be? This is unconstitutional. How can these mandates be? And that got me really you know, leveled up, more interested, I don't know, fed up, all the above, and thought, gosh, I have got to do something. And I just felt the pull on my heart that I had to step up and do something else. And so I was still serving on the State Board of Education, but talking with the legislators, our representatives, they encouraged me to run for state representative. And so in 2022, then I did. I ran for state representative and in the fourth legislative district. I was unsuccessful, but it got me involved more in the political scene and in the Republican Party, especially, here in Spokane, as well as understanding kind of the lay of the land out throughout the state too, because I have, other friends that are legislators and just kind of watching all of it.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't successful in that bid, in that election, but it definitely got my interest peaked in the local politics. And I had some people ask me if I would run, for the leadership. And so I ran for the vice chair of the Spokane County Republican Party. And I did receive that, got that vote. And so I was vice chair. And then our chair took another job opportunity the middle of the year this last year. So that was what, December 10th. So it was a little over
Mhm.
12 months ago when I received the vote for the vice chair. And so a few months back, our chair decided to take a different role, and that left the chair open. And so then prayerfully considered running for chair. And so I did, and I won that election. And so now here I am, the chair of the Spokane County GOP. Would have never thought that was what I was going to do 2 years ago, but that's the way things work, right?
Right. I didn't come into politics through joining the party. I came into the party through joining politics. And for me too, it was a case of getting fed up. As an architect, I kept being asked to solve, well, I always had dealt with bureaucratic regulations and all well-intentioned, lots of unintended consequences, things that I'm trying to help my clients navigate. And I was kind of fed up with being asked to solve a problem by a change in the building that really had to do with some obscure regulation about building codes. Just all of that sort of thing was too much. And I had a friend who was the county chair, who we would debate politics back and forth. And I had an experience where I was able to attend a workshop for a couple of weeks in Africa with everybody else there except my husband and I were from Southern Africa. And the South Africans were discussing how their leadership in their country was not supporting the people. And I had never really thought about very deeply, I have to say, as much as I had faithfully voted every election, I had never thought really deeply about that connection between the responsibilities of the government and the responsibilities of the people. It just really got me thinking about it. I came back here, I looked at my clients and looked at what was going on, and I jumped in to run with honestly nobody encouraging me, except that I felt that that was what I needed to do because I just jump in and do things. That was 2004. And I lost. I actually did pretty decent for somebody who had no clue what they were doing. About a 25% in a three-way election, the last time before we had the top two. 2008 election, I was actually asked by one group within the party to run in the 7th legislative district, and there were 5 Republicans in the primary. Shelley Short and I were in the final. We had just a really strong competition, but it was a fair competition. And there was some independent spending that bugged me. But I have to say that in through all that, I got a much better sense of how having a candidate who fits the electorate makes a difference. And of just experiencing campaigning gives you a whole different look on things. Shelley and I we have a good working relationship. It's fine. You can compete, and it's not. After the
Yes.
2004 election, I showed up at a Republican function for the legislative committee, and I had 2 of the old guys looked at me and said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, it was an election, not an execution. Now I'm really interested in politics. So I stayed involved, and then after that, I ended up being asked to run for Lincoln County chair, a much smaller county to deal with, but in some ways that makes it easier because we had the same kinds of divisions that many counties had, but we're very small, and it's maybe it's easier to remain civil because you know that people that you might disagree with in one area, you're going to meet them again someplace else. And so you have to maintain relationships. And I think that's a challenge that you have, I know right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome that you were able to remain, amicable with Senator Short. She's done so much. I had the same, experience. I didn't know Representative Suzanne Schmidt now, when I ran, but we feel the same way. We have a great working relationship. We work very closely together, and super supportive of her now in that role. So I agree with you. It's not an execution, it's an election. I'm going to use that. I like that.
Yeah, the piece this is the piece about fitting a candidate to an electorate. The Lincoln County has now we've been in 2 different legislative districts since. We're at the center of where 6 districts come together, and when they do redistricting, here's this chunk of red votes that they can assign to whichever district they think needs the balance. So we are getting moved, and we probably will get moved every 10 years at this point. So
Wow.
we got moved out of the 7th. The 7th is Northeast Washington, where we had been for a long time. And Lincoln County is a little different than most of the rest of the 7th. We're not timber country. We're very much more like the Central Basin, where we were in the 13th for 10 years, and now we're in the 9th with the
Mm,
pollutes. And honestly, our kind of commercial agriculture fits better with either the 13th or the 9th. So it's been fine, and we've had good legislative representation in each one. But it's always been about building relationships with people in other counties and with the new set of legislators, and yeah, the relationships really make a difference.
yeah. Yeah. Really, it's all about relationships. I think I've learned that throughout, most of my life, right? It's all about the relationships. And we got to remember we're on the same team.
Right, right. And
If
the
only we
toughest.
could remind all Republicans of that, right, Sulani?
Well, we have to think about it like siblings, right? Siblings can be their toughest competitors, wrestling mercilessly and tormenting each other, but they got to stick together when when somebody from outside comes in. Yeah, one of the things with Braver Angels, and that was why I had actually had called you to begin with, is we want to look at doing a Braver Angels workshop to talk about those red to red. In Brave Angels, we talk about the red-blue divide, and that is a divide we need to work across. There's always going to have to be compromise. We are not ever going to all agree, and that's fine. We just need to disagree correctly or accurately. But the toughest relationship battles are always within your own tribe, right? Because you feel like you risk you risk losing friendships, you risk losing connections, you risk losing a sense of belonging, and it's much riskier than disagreeing with somebody that you already know belongs to the other side. And yeah, that's a piece of what I hope this year, that I actually hope both parties are able to be more cohesive, because I think we operate better when both parties have are healthy. The competition is much more sane. So if we just need more people to participate and to participate in the caucus. I never went to a caucus until I was a candidate. It didn't occur to me, and I would like more people to think about it without having to run for the legislature first.
Right, right. Yeah, it's such an important opportunity. And I think you're right. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know about it, and until you get into politics. But it's too bad
Mhm,
because it really is an opportunity to get with like-minded individuals that live in
mhm,
your neighborhood. And of course, we're such a disassociated society anymore, right? We're so
mhm,
disconnected. And we don't have the barbecue or the neighborhood barbecues. People are just not as connected, and this really is an important opportunity for people to come together and talk to their neighbors about
mhm.
what's happening, the laws that are impacting us, and how can we get better representation in our electeds. And it's a very exciting opportunity. We're very excited about it. We really have tried to promote it as much as we could, and can and market it, across our across the county. But hopefully we'll get a good turnout. I know the weather might be a little funky, but and we're actually ahead of Iowa. Shh. We
We
are.
we are.
We are caucusing before the Iowa caucuses 2 days prior.
Right.
And that's something. I'm not sure how who did that or got that to happen, but I think they might be kind of keeping it on the down low. Maybe I'm not helping here by saying that. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. But it
Well,
is. It's a really important opportunity.
well, let's dispel some well, not dispel, let's just provide some information about what to expect, right? For one thing, something that I didn't know until I jumped in was the caucuses for Republican parties across each of the 39 counties is at the same time on the same day. So everybody's meeting at 10 a.m., 10 to noon on Saturday, January 13th. So anybody who's listening to this in any county, you can find the nearest caucus in your county for your neighborhood. And it really is. It's about meeting with your neighbors. And the purpose of the caucus is really to start the process of from the very grassroots of who's going to be representatives to from the precinct to from the county to the state convention. And so tell us about how Spokane County is organized.
Yeah. So if you go to convention.spokanegop.com, you will find some different links to find out, number one, where your precinct caucus is, because we do have 451 precincts in our
Mhm.
county. And so we've got lots of different locations. Some people are having it in their house. Some people, most people are doing it in like a jumbo location, what we call. Mine is going to be over at University High School. I'm a PCO, and so that's where ours is going to be, along with
And
assembly
PCO is precinct committee
precinct.
officer.
Yeah, yeah, let's talk about that, right? So we have elected or appointed PCOs, precinct committee officers, that are your representation, your local hood neighborhood precinct representation to the party. And if those are on your ballot only if there is a challenge. That's why a lot of people don't understand or aren't aware of that, because only if you have two people running for that position does it even go on the ballot, which is unfortunate,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
a lot of times people don't, aren't challenged, they're the only person running. And so they automatically become the PCO, the precinct committee officer. So all across our county, our PCOs are holding their caucuses in different locations. So you can go to that website. Again, it's convention.spokanegop.com. Or if you can't remember that, just remember spokanegop.com. And we're asking people to pre-register so we can help with it's free to pre-register. You can find out where you're going. And also it helps us to speed up the registration process so we can pre-credential you. And you have to be a registered voter. You have to make sure you're in the right precinct, and you have to have a
Mhm.
valid ID. So we got to be able to know you are who you say you are. and you're a valid registered voter in your
Yes,
state.
there's actually voter ID required.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Yeah, we do check your ID. We want to see that you are who you say you are. And so that's what we're doing this Saturday. Yeah, and everybody across the state is doing the same thing.
Hmm.
And then we will during that time, we'll look at our platform and we'll have conversations, and if people want to bring up other resolutions or concerns that they have locally or even, here in Spokane or at the state level, they can do that. They can try to get a resolution passed, and they can also talk about our platform. But mostly our job is to get delegates elected that will represent your precinct at the county level at the Spokane County Convention on February 10th. And then
Okay.
from February 10th, we will elect delegates that will go to the state party convention, which is in April 19th and 20th here in Spokane. So we have a really great opportunity here in Spokane to be very involved without the expense of having travel across, the state somewhere else. So it is very exciting. The other thing that's exciting this year is I believe it's the first time that our state is doing an endorsement convention,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
So we
right,
have 9 statewide elected offices that are, open this year. So that's the governor, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, OSPI. I'm not going to remember all of them, but there's 9, and they're very important. And so from our state convention, we are hoping to come out with a party endorsement for each of those races. We're hoping. And so this is a great opportunity for us to coalesce as Republicans and get behind, a candidate, hopefully. Now there are some situations and there's some stuff in the rules that they could dual endorse, but that is the idea because unfortunately, we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot and past recent elections because we had, so many Republicans running that they canceled each other out. And then unfortunately, in the general, then there wasn't a Republican running. So we want to try to take care of it. That's was the forethought
right,
on that. So it's
right.
an exciting opportunity. So presidential, yes, that's the opportunity, to be a delegate for a certain president and for these other elected offices across our state as well.
Right. And really get involved in some good conversations there. I watched there was just a number of years and I used to do the meet the candidate interviews, which is where I first met you.
Yes.
And I'm hoping to do that again this year, which is those were just non-political interviews with people as just who is this person who stepped up to run. But so we would invite everybody. Um, I even invited like Mike the Mover. I mean, not that he ever responded, but uh, and you meet a lot of really, really good, well-intentioned people. Um, but somebody who's running for US Senate because she has 100 followers on Twitter is not going to make it. No, it's just not going to work, right? And I was always, when I was involved with the state party, I always appreciated that as much as everybody would have their favorites, there was a real effort institutionally to be fair to everybody until you got to the primary. But that meant that our candidates were always starting in August with only like 2 months that they had the full they even had like the whole mailing list, right? Access to the full database to connect with people. And that was really putting our statewide candidates at a disadvantage. And that's what I saw when I was at Lincoln County Party chair and involved with the state party. Um, so I think that this is a great idea. I think that it should really help to say, okay, we're gonna people who have paid attention, who have gone to caucus and been a delegate, and they're paying attention to the politics and they're thinking about what it means to find a candidate that's a good fit and that can represent Republican values, that they will help narrow down that field. It doesn't mean that other people can't file to run, but they can narrow down that field and make an institutional level decision about support at a time when it really is critical. So again, another reason to be involved in caucus.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So,
an exciting time. I mean, there's a lot going on. And of course, people are focused on the presidential election, which is, of course, is very important. But it is even more important the more local we get, those jurisdictions. So these 9 statewide offices, I mean, it's pretty amazing opportunities. So, and we want to, again, as Republicans, yes, we want to caucus and we want to get involved in that process. And we also need to take it upon ourselves to see how we can help our neighbors in our neighborhood to get engaged. We have a lot of Republicans that aren't engaged, like don't even vote. And we
Mhm.
could really flip things if we could focus on that, on getting people to vote, on getting people registered. I mean, I know even with my own precinct, I have about 1,100, oh yeah, close to 1,100 people in my precinct. And out of that, about 800 Republicans. And yet I think only about 400 or 500 voted this last election. And
Yeah.
so, we can know who voted. We don't know how people voted. And we, have data that kind of helps us to know if they're possibly Republicans or not. It's kind of getting in the weeds there a little bit. But it is interesting. I think we've got a lot of disenfranchised people out there in
Mhm.
the Republican Party. And we need to own that collectively and go, how can we get people engaged? I mean, these things are happening, these laws are happening, that most people that I talk to, probably you talk to too, are horrified at. There's a bill being heard on Friday to change the definition of a vaccine. There's
Mhm.
a bill that was dropped to demand that, all the landscaping equipment must be electric and not gas powered. And, hopefully those bills don't pass. But we need people involved with this, and we need to get, a better representation at the state level for sure.
Okay, well, we'll close at that, and I will put this up and we can send it around and see if we can get more enthusiastic participation at the caucus this Saturday.
Yes, for sure. Remember to go to convention.spokanegop.com, and we'd love to see you there.
All right. Bye,
Thanks,
MJ.
Ilani. Uh-huh.